Does anyone want me to read the pre-meeting and that?
No, sir.
Okay, good idea. First order of business is general public comments. Is there any comments on matters that are not on the agenda? Okay, the meeting minutes from August 14th.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor? And Kelly and I abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, the next matter is new business, MAP 25-79, Jennifer Tucker, 401 Van Gilbert Street.
Good evening, everyone. The applicant is here to answer any questions, but I'll go through the packet slide here. The location of the property is at the intersection of Van Gilder, Potsman, and Stewart Street. You can see up on the screen it involves two lots that are approximately, when combined, almost 7,000 square feet. The lot that's adjacent to this particular property, as well as it's kind of wedged between that and Stewart Street, is owned by the city of Morgantown. So that just as a reference going forward. This is the zoning map that you can see here. Directly across the street is Skyline Apartments and the associated zoning with that, as well as the zoning that's across the street on Protzman. Pretty much all surrounded by R1A, other than the R2 that's further to the south, where there were conditional use permits issued in the past to build the apartment building that, if you're going down Protzman, it'd be on your left-hand side. It's about 35 one-bedroom apartments that are located there. That's just south of the Skyline Apartments location. And then into the north, you kind of see two different colors. You see this, which is really interesting, and I talked to the county about this. So this here is the West Run Planning District, right? So there has zoning regulations associated with it. This area here is in the county, but was not part of the West Run Planning District. So it's in its own, it's in its own space. So I found that very interesting. So when I referenced in the staff report that to the north, I said unincorporated, and then the actual zoned areas are to the north of that. So just for clarification purposes with the map. This is looking east on Van Gilder. The subject property is on the left-hand side. And then this is another area view with near maps showing, again, a subject site. So here's Skyline Apartments. Here's the two lots here on Van Gilder. Going down Protzman, this is where the other apartment complex is. That's R2 that got received a conditional use. And then this is in the county in the West Run Planning District. And you can see there's some townhomes here, and then apartments start back up as you head north out of town. The applicant did provide a real conceptual rendering of what's going on, and the applicant maybe talk about this a little bit more, but something having basically the units on the upper floor with parking underneath, because they realize that obviously Van Gilder is a pretty tight avenue, so they would put the parking underneath and the residential units above. This is excerpts from the Comprehensive Plan Land Management Plan. The area shaded here in this purple color is representative of what they call the residential mixed use, and basically the sliver that runs between the Wiles Hill neighborhood and where Protzman and Stewart Street, that sliver is also considered residential mixed use up into the city's corporation boundaries. If you look at the compatible use types that are looked at in a residential mixed use district, our residential mixed-use district, it would include two-family, multifamily, some light commercial green space opportunities where they would permit themselves.
I'm sorry, Ricky, just because all of you using that pointer, point again to where this property is on the map.
Is that the star right?
The other star.
That's the star.
Thank you.
It's way up there.
It's up here.
By the way, I like the new pointer, I can see it. Pardon? I like the pointer, I can see it. Couldn't see
There
it.
we go, right? Look at that. And then this just, again, showing the property looking eastward from the intersection at Protzman and Van Gilder. That will conclude staff's report.
Applicant?
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Jennifer Tucker.
Okay.
The conceptual drawings, I know there was 2 units in that, but it would just be the one building, because I know we can't put that much there. And we do want to do the garage unders with the units actually above them.
Okay. And just curiosity on my part, how many units versus how many parking spaces in the garages?
6 units. We were thinking 6 to 8, but like I said, this is just all tentative right now. The parking, there's going to be some 1-bedrooms and then the 2 bedrooms. So that would be, per the unit, because you have to have, a parking space? Is it per bedroom? Is that correct?
It's per occupant, so if you did, let's say you did 8 total units with 2 bedrooms each, you would have to have at least 12 off-street parking. It's 0.75 spaces per occupant. So if you have a 2-bedroom apartment, it'd be 1.5 spaces.
Okay. Whatever it is, I would just like to get it built and be built so it's cohesive with the neighborhood. I don't want a big, massive structure, we just want to put some units there. I got the property from my father, like 5 years ago when he passed away. So we've just been trying to see what to do with it. Yeah, other than that, I don't know.
Anybody else have any?
And right now sits their residential home that's
It's going to be
unoccupied.
tore down, yeah, we've gotten a couple estimates, to get it tore down. They've
Yeah.
been up there cutting the trees down and getting all that down, so, but it's still there as of today.
Gotcha.
And we have spoken with the developer, that he's built some other units. Down behind Shorty Anderson, I'm not sure what those are called. Gray Cliff, I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, Marty Pavone or whatever, we've been speaking to him about helping build it, because he said he would, be willing to go forward with that.
Okay.
But due to the area and where it's located at, R3, I think is the first step we went with. And I do realize there's R2.
That was going to be my question, is did you consider R2 and then applying for conditional use?
No, I did not. I just found out about that, so I mean, if that would be another direction I would have to go, then, that could be looked at as well.
Any other questions? I have a tricky question for you. This is more than one parcel, so before anything's done, it'd have to be consolidated under minor subdivision, yes?
Pardon me?
They would have to be consolidated under minor subdivision before anything's done anyway, right?
Either it needs to be consolidated, or they could put a restriction in the deed that says for planning and zoning purposes, it can be considered one lot. Preference would be to be consolidated.
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
How large is the single-family home on that property?
That's there now. It is, I think they have it listed as like a 7-bedroom or something, because there's like underneath that red area, if you can put it, there's actually a bedroom, a unit down there. And I'm not too sure, my dad was just a hoarder, so I don't know, I haven't even been down in that part of it.
So it's unoccupied?
Yes, it is. But I think on the books, it's like 7-bedroom, maybe 2 or 3 baths, I believe. But as far as square footage, I'm really not too
Is
sure.
that modern HVAC? Is there air conditioning or forced air heating or anything like that?
No, there's no, no, there's no forced AC. There is, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Anything else you want to say?
Well, that was about it. The little report he turned in was pretty much what I was going to say, as opposed to me printing off all my maps and stuff. And I just wanted to make it clear, that we were going to try to put some kind of parking underneath of the units, and we didn't want to try to cram a bunch in there just so it wasn't obtrusive, to the neighborhood. We want to make it fit in as much as possible.
Really, what we're working on today is not so much the build-out, it is the classification of the property itself.
Right.
And whether that you've requested is properly consistent with the law, so.
Right.
That's what we're trying.
I'm unsure of all how this process works, but this is the first step, so.
But it works.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you.
Okay, anyone who would like to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition?
I'm not sure.
You gotta come up to the podium and introduce yourself.
I don't know whether to take the opposition.
Well, you can just say whatever you want. How about-
I'm Jane Lefevre, I live at 301 Raymond Street, and I think Yeah, we just didn't know from the description what it was gonna be. It's like, why did you change from one RA to multifamily? Was it gonna be a 5 or 6 story thing or whatever, and how big, and the parking? Because that intersection of Stewart Street and Proxima and Van Gilder, we always call it, the locals call it Spaghetti Junction, because there's 5 different streets trying, because Hoffman's right there, they keep on reconfiguring it, and it's the worst intersection, so we didn't know whether they were going to come out or anything. And like BF4's Metro place, they had the whole street taken with parking, because they don't want to park down below if they live on this side, so they take the whole street. So, but I think if we get, yeah, I mean, that's a lot's nicer than what's there now, and if it is housing. And some people were concerned because they didn't know what they were going to do. And if we get some crosswalks in there, and that'll stop street, because it is hard to cross, because right down that street and take a right is the opening, 2 openings to our green space, which is Falling Run Green Space. So we got Kaiser and Brad up there, and it is hard to cross there. Because coming at Proxima, they don't stop, so, and they're talking about, it's so bad kind of there, that the MMTO, or what E, is talking about a random roundabout there. I mean, it's tier 4, so they probably never get to it, but as long as you all, get enough stop signs and crosswalks and different things there, and a bigger mirror maybe, then this extra thing shouldn't bother one. And like I said, it looks like it's gonna look a lot nicer than it is. Not sure how they're gonna enter it, because it looked like the path when you're looking at map partial view, that the road maybe goes into the city thing, a driveway, and everything. So, yeah, right there, close to the back of those vans, I didn't know whether they go through there, whether it still is a path through there, how they're gonna go through, whether they're gonna go through Van Hill or where, but as long as it's okay with you all, this looks good, and just maybe crosswalks. Okay, cool, yeah, we see the Hoffman in that, it's awful, and the Proxima doesn't stop because it's too steep, so trying to get there to go to our green space is kind of fuzzy.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak, either in favor or opposition? However you want.
Me?
If you want to.
Oh, I just hear because
You can either come up to the microphone or just shake your head, no, I don't want that.
I'm Councilor Michael, 3rd Ward.
Okay.
So a couple of the neighbors had asked me to come, and they were concerned about the parking situation. I think we could all agree we need more housing, but the parking is an issue up there. I took a drive over there, and so if we can just focus, and she seems to have, a plan for that, so, and underneath ground would be perfect, so I think we're good.
Okay.
So.
Anyone else who'd like to speak in favor or opposition? Okay, staff recommendation, please.
After review, staff would recommend that the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, any discussion?
As far as the build-out goes, and the councilor's concerns, this is not a development of significant impact, right?
No, sir.
So how would we regulate the build-out if we wanted to make sure that we met the concerns of the neighborhood?
To have more community engagement in that process?
I mean, how do we make sure the parking is configured as we've discussed here this evening?
So right now, it'd be an administrative review, and so we'd have everybody on the team that was responsible for looking at those, including the city engineer, MUB, everybody would be looking at that, and that intersection is a concern of everybody as well, so that would be something that would definitely be taken into consideration.
So, but, can I follow up? Or do you want to follow up?
No, sir, you're the chair.
I think what the concern is, we have a rendering, we have a plan, but there's nothing that's going to hold them to that plan. So once this is done, it can be like, we can build what we want and just park it on the street. Is there any, and I'm not saying you'll do that, I'm just trying to echo what some concerns of the neighbors might be.
It's been done before, let's just.
Is there any way to ensure that it is done that way with the parking on the property, however it may be, either underneath, whatever, but not on the street?
Not at this time. In terms of looking at conditions, I wouldn't think so. And based on other previous cases that we looked at, imposing those conditions at a rezoning phase, I don't think the planning commission has thought that that was a, you know, a good approach towards that. That being said, though, I think the existing setback requirements is something that really the applicant's going to have to take a look at. The lot is only 100 by 65, if you include both lots. So we're looking at a 6,500 square foot lot, and we'll have to look at realistically what's going to be possible, because the setbacks, minimum of 10, minimum side of 5, minimum rear of 20, that's really boxing in what's developable. So my point in saying that is that if anything isn't to code, then they'll have to get variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals, which would be another engagement process and public hearing.
This was going to be my question. I personally think R2 is a better fit for this area, I mean, than a random spot of R3 in that neighborhood where it's all R1A and R2. The most adjacent properties are R2. If it were to be rezoned R2, and that's a conditional, multifamily would be a conditional use in that zone, then they would have to go before the BZA for approval, and at that time, would they have to submit plans for what is being built for the conditional?
They'd have to have more of a plan in place, correct, more than just a conceptual at this point.
So then they could ensure that the parking is being put in place?
Yeah, and staff would be working with them through that too, so, you know, if they got to that point, what we would try to do from a development perspective is if they needed the conditional use, if they also need variance relief, we'd tie those things together and run it through. So we'd be consulting with the applicant the whole time, whether they go the conditional use route or they have to just get variance relief independent of a conditional use permit.
Is there a reason that staff did not suggest R2 and instead proceeded with an R3 recommendation?
Well, primarily because of what the comp plan and how it kind of identifies that corridor as being more over time, less single-family, more multifamily, two-family dwellings, and the other is because you do have a 35, 40-unit, 45-unit building across the street, and that area is zoned R3 up at that intersection. I went back and looked at our records going back to 2006 online, and I can't find anything where this property was zoned to R3, but it had to have been, because in subsequent applications, there was a parking lot, I think, built back here eventually at one point. It references that that parcel was zoned R3. So where the applicant's requesting is adjacent to an R3 district already.
I'm not mistaken in that our documentation says that big parcel is R2, right?
This is R3,
This is like so tiny, I can't.
I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, so.
Oh, I was under the impression that that was R2 and had been a conditional use.
No. The area to the south that I referenced is, and that's more, if you looked at the zoning map, it's much more broad and R2, but it encompasses a lot of the areas where you see some of the multifamily housing that exists along that particular corridor. This is a portion of it that's sneaking up. This is Stewart coming from downtown in the campus area, and then this is the connection over to the intersection of Van Gilder right here. Those three lots are where you see right now, I think, they're either duplexes or multifamily on these two units at least, where the B1 is zoned, and this is a vacant lot right now.
Okay. But that orange chunk
Is
next to you
R3.
is R3 currently. And I just attended the MMMPO meeting, and this particular intersection has been identified as one of the places they want to look at. They're talking about a roundabout. And they said in order to do that, the intersection would have to be moved further up Stewart Street.
I can go back to.
How would that potentially affect any plans for this area?
I mean, if they needed additional property, they're going to have to acquire that from those property owners, right? So somebody's going to be impacted, right? No matter which way you move it.
Well, and I specifically asked about that piece of city property and was told that the city was holding on to it for reconfiguration of that intersection if needed, so.
I mean, I agree, it's like I consider it the worst intersection in Morgantown.
It's awful.
It's up there.
Actually, I do pass through it, and I think most of the traffic on that is passed through. It's not this local traffic. I'm not really concerned with the amount of traffic added here. And that mirror is ridiculously small.
I wrote that down. We need to get that.
You know, if they can put a stop sign at the top of A Street, they can put a stop sign at the top of Roseman or whatever that street is there. So I don't know why they don't, because that would really alleviate a lot of the issues with.
Understood.
Again, I don't have a problem with this, but getting back to our discussion last time, if we were basing this on the comprehensive plan, if you go 2 streets up and take a right, there is some nice single-family homes, new, that have been developed. I don't remember what that street is, Cedar or something? Yeah, and technically, they're in the pink zone on here.
Right.
So technically, there could be apartments put right next to them. And are we really going to follow a comprehensive plan that's going to tell us to do that? I think we need to revisit this whole issue, but that's just my single opinion. I don't know how we do it, but I get it. We have to rule on what we have in place now, but we did not get this insular when we developed this plan, as far as these micro areas and deciding, you know, what's going to be there, if it's going to be R3 with apartments there or whatever. And I think we're getting into some sticky situations here because, you know, it's not that far away from those R3 apartments that's there now. And I hate to use that as an argument. They're there so we can make anything else happen anywhere in that pink area.
Yes, and so we're talking about, to your point, Mr. Petros, we're talking about this area right here where Kaiser and George Streets are that come off Van Gilder. Yes, those are, now there is one, I think, complex there that is a duplex or townhomes that's kind of set in there, but right, there are many new single-family dwellings there. If we were going to go back and revisit that map, I would recommend that be changed back to a lesser density than the mixed-use residential corridor. But
I'm just making the argument that we really need to consider this.
But this particular property is...
Yeah. But the next application is right there. So.
Any other discussion?
I would echo Commissioner Petros's concern there, especially with looking here, Ricky, the kind of the juxtaposition, or I guess conflict, you'd say, from, I guess there's the growth plan and there's the management plan. And so the first part, the residential type 1, to me, kind of says this growth is kind of preserving what's already there. So I think Councilor Wees made a very good point about that we want to include different types of housing units. And this is a good candidate for it. I think if the community's concerns is with the parking and our proposed, not necessarily today, but parking underneath, I really have concerns about the size of that lot and getting multiple units and providing parking on there. So I think it's going to kind of work itself out, but I don't think, since there's nothing tying the developer's hands to having parking underneath, it very well could be just surface parking. So I don't think this is going to be very big, but to mirror Mr. Petro's comments, though, those two like conflicts are kind of bothering me, where it kind of says one thing about where I think this type of residential mixed use is something along with all the apartments on University, with some commercial on the bottom and then big apartments, multiple stories. I don't think that's going to be the case here.
No.
So this is all to say is that for discussion-wise is that I don't, even going to an R3, I don't think we're going to get much just given the constraints of the lot itself. So technically it does meet the comprehensive plan, but I just kind of want to put more on the record that those are kind of my issues with this area and what the comprehensive plan is saying for that particular spot.
I think those are excellent points. The question is, how do we make sure that this parcel is productive? Provides a place for people to live, or otherwise tax revenues, or, the structure on there is obsolete. And for us to think that somebody's going to drop that structure and put a single-family residence right across the street from what's there, I think is unrealistic. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think the infrastructure does not support a large development, but as Commissioner Williams has stated, this is not going to be a large development. And I think the marketplace is going to tell the builder or the developer, you got to provide parking, because who's going to buy an apartment out there when they can't find a place to put their car? So I wish we didn't have to rely on the marketplace to regulate this, but I think that's where we end up because it's not a development of significant impact. So I support the application. That it's not my favorite one, and we've wrote that, but I think it's practically a move forward for the neighborhood.
Mr. President, I forgot to ask one question too. For R3, are there any density regulations as far as limitations of how many units can be, or is it just going to be parking and the dimensional standards?
It'd be the
basically?
parking and the dimensional standards.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
What's limiting us from, I mean, they can do what they want to do, they're planning to do with an R2, correct? With appropriate conditional use permits.
I would think it may be unlawful spot zoning would be a problem.
Yeah, when I mentioned R2, I totally thought that orange was R2 with
Oh,
conditional
okay.
use.
Yeah.
My packet is very small.
Yeah.
I thought my eyes were good, but not that good.
I mean, an argument could be made that the R2 wouldn't be considered spot zoning if you look at the one of the observations that staff made in the packet, is that it still allows for the intent of the residential mixed use only through a conditional use permit, right? So if you wanted to do multifamily or mixed use with residential and commercial, you'd have to get a conditional use permit instead of by right. So you could potentially look at it that way if you wanted to.
Okay, if you would support that, I mean, you're supporting
Yep.
R2 is not spot zoning. That's
Yeah.
your opinion?
I think that would be another reasonable way to look at it.
How
but-
will we present that to council? Will we deny this application or make a recommendation to council?
I would want to consult with the applicant, and if they're amenable to that, then that would be the recommendation that would be put forward.
That we deny the application or that we recommend it?
That, in speaking with the applicant during the hearing, the R2 recommendation was put forward by the planning commission, as long as the applicant was agreeable to it. Mind if I step out for a
Can I ask
second?
one more question before you do that?
Yes.
The land behind it, I get it, it's in the county.
Correct.
If it was in the city, how would it be zoned with its current use?
How would it be zoned?
Yeah, is it townhouses or what's
It would
it?
probably be a medium to higher density, just because of the connection to the county, and there's
Okay.
already apartments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just asking for consistency. and I don't know if that matters.
Consistency from the county, huh?
For now.
I'd like to know how that got out of the West Run Planning District. Doesn't make any sense.
I really like that.
I can't say what I'm thinking, because
I came in here
I read
thinking
lights on.
R2 was the right choice, but now, I mean, R2 seems like a spot to me, like you said.
I think it is, but he doesn't, and if he's willing to support
I
it,
disagree
hey.
with him a lot.
But realistically, so if they don't consider it spot zoning and no one else complains, then it's a spot zoning. Somebody's got to complain about it first,
I mean,
right?
if we were rezoning the whole area right now, would we make it R2?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So maybe this is a start. We put a spot in.
Well, I like it because it gives us that chance on the back end to make sure what gets put in there doesn't put more
Yes.
burden on the neighborhood.
Yeah, because my concern, and granted, it's a very small lot, and you can only do so much within the constraints, but if there's not a limitation and it's R3, and the project can't get built for whatever reason because of constraints, what's to stop somebody from purchasing some more property down the line and consolidating and then build something?
Now they're
bigger
next to
than
R3 and they want another one.
Yeah,
to be R3.
and then you build a bigger project there. That's my concern, because we've seen sometimes projects like this just don't get built because they're too constrained. And then you have somebody collecting lots, and then all of a sudden, you got something you never wanted.
You have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other side.
It seems very congested already with the big, like, so R2 would kind of keep it from being what it is across.
Well, and that's always my concern, right? I bring this up almost every time we're asked to rezone something. It's not about what they're presenting to us that they intend to do. You have to think, anything in that zone will be built in the future. You have to be prepared for anything that's allowed in R3 to go on
Yeah,
that.
and that was,
And R2 keeps it more.
Well, it gives us a chance to have a review. The BZA is going to look at what's being put there, and staff is going to look at it and have input as well.
Yes.
If they
Formal
want
input.
multiple family, right.
Yes, sir. Formal.
So spoke with the applicant, definitely a consideration at this point, but the one change that we discussed is that if you move to an R2, the setback requirements and those development standards change. And I don't know how that would impact the property in terms of its being able to be developed, because obviously if you go to R2, the dimensions and standards are going to change and get more restrictive, right, because you're moving back to. So for those reasons, staff would recommend that table this item for now, come back at the next meeting where staff can speak with the applicant and see what way to move forward.
So will you be able to tell us, if we table this, will you be able to tell us, right now you told us what the setbacks are. And I guess my thing is, I don't do math, so with the setbacks, I kind of want an idea of what's the buildable area in there, and is there something that can be built, R2 versus R3?
And that's what the applicant needs to know and look
Okay,
at,
yeah.
for sure. So I'll just pull it up really quick, and Ms. Tucker, you can, just the changes. So a minimum front setback in the R2 is 10, maximum front setback is 20. So that's the same in both the R2 and the R3. Minimum side setback is 5 foot, that's the same. Minimum rear setback is 20 foot, so that is the same as well.
So it's the same
So they're the
setback?
same.
Yeah. But I still think I'd want to give the applicant just to look
Sure.
over the standards.
The lot coverage I know is different too. So,
Yes, 50%, thank you. Lot coverage, 50% versus the R3, which I believe is 40%.
right.
Move to table the application, place it on the next agenda.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay.
Okay.
Table.
Just to ask a follow-up on that, is the lot coverage something that a variance could be applied for if she chose?
Yes.
to-
Okay, any committee reports? Staff comments?
No comments, sir.
You got nothing to say?
Nothing.
Second.
Let's have dinner. We got a ballgame to watch.
I didn't know I was going to go home and cook dinner.
Yeah. So do I.